Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Palau Alliance Ministries webinar. This is David Jones from the Palau team. We also have with us today Courtney and Amy, Jeff, and Dr. Jim Williams from the Alliance Ministry team. And before we get started here, I'm going to ask Dr. Williams if he'll open our webinar in prayer.
Sure. Lord, we do thank you for this beautiful day that you've given us to serve you. We thank you for the opportunity to learn. We pray for Ron. Lord, we pray that you would give him grace today. Help us all to learn what you want us to learn. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen, amen. Well, again, welcome everyone to today's Palau Alliance Ministries webinar on breakthroughs in fundraising. Today we'll be discussing the 5 critical goals of donor development that every organization must achieve to be successful. And our guest presenter is Ron Frey. Ron has a real passion to see his clients become successful in fundraising. His career includes leadership roles and consulting in a variety of nonprofit organizations, including social services, youth organizations, camps, churches, international relief and development organizations. And for those of us here in the Portland office with Palau, it was our privilege to be colleagues with Ron as he spent 7 years with the Luis Palau Association as our Director of Donor Communications and Estate Planning. And Ron pioneered for the Palau Ministry our corporate sponsorship program. His clients look to him for innovative marketing and fundraising solutions, strategic planning, direct marketing, branding. So this webinar is going to give you some really good creative ideas on how to move your development program forward. And at the end of the webinar, Ron will be available to answer your questions based on his 30-plus years of development experience. If you have questions during the webinar, you can type those questions there on your computer screen on the right-hand side, and we'll go through those at the end of Ron's presentation. So at this time, please welcome Ron Frey.
Thank you very much, David. It is an absolute privilege to be here, and thank you all for joining. I'd like to just start by please welcome any comments that you have. What do you need from today's webinar? Let me know. Type that into your screen if you've got questions, comments. I'd love to hear from you throughout the webinar. David mentioned it's been 30 years, and that's actually quite precise. It was 30 years ago, this last week of, first week of April, actually, in 1983.
Something's going on here.
With the sound, I'm not sure what that is. Not sure if you even heard that. But anyway, 30 years ago today and 1 week ago, I joined the staff of Campus Crusade, and that's where I met John Ogle. And it's been an interesting 30 years. We had breakfast this morning. Somebody would have told me 30 years ago that I'd still be in development and I'd be eating breakfast with John Ogle. I don't think I would have believed him. But I want to say that just to let you all know that there's hope. And this isn't going to go away. Fundraising is here to stay. You are in ministries and ministry organizations that will need your donors and need ongoing support for a long time to accomplish what God's given you to do. It's interesting, today's audience. I just think it's interesting that we have organizations with donor bases ranging from no donors to tens of thousands. We have organizations that have incomes ranging from 0 to 90 million, and we have organizations that are using a wide variety of fundraising methods, but most of you are all using direct mail, you're using events, personal relationships, some church, and that's sort of the profile of who's on it. It's a wide, diverse group. And so what I want to speak to you today are some principles that I believe are both timeless and universal. What I'm going to give you today are the 5 goals of donor development, and I believe that these 5 goals are always going to be relevant, applicable. You're always going to need to frame your donor development program around these 5 goals. So these 5 goals work for everybody all the time, and they always will, I believe. And so let's start with some questions. First of all, what's the goal of donor development, and where are your breakthroughs going to come from? Let's start with what's the goal. After 30 years of fundraising experience, this is how I frame up the goal of donor development. The overarching goal of donor development is to find the right kind of donor, deliver value to them for their partnership, and to keep them for life. Now, over the years, I've found a lot of organizations that have a different kind of thinking about their goal. They think their goal is to raise money. Well, yeah, that would be the result of achieving the goal that I've put here. The result of finding the right kind of donor and delivering value to them for their partnership and keeping them for a long time is that money will come. But that is not the goal of donor development. Fundraising is about the golden egg. And if you go into your fundraising program seeking the gift, you will never get the heart of the giver. So what we need to do is we need to shift our focus in this from fundraising, which is the focus on the gift, the focus on getting the cash, to getting at the heart of the giver and taking care of the goose that laid the egg. Does that make sense to everybody? We've got to think in terms of ministering to the hearts of donors, bringing them along, and that's where I'm going to spend some time talking about that throughout the seminar and that philosophy. Organizations have no needs. This is the first breakthrough concept. I want to say that organizations have no needs. The point is you have solutions. If you go at it from the point that your organization has needs and you're asking donors to meet those needs, that's the wrong approach. You've got to realize that what you have is solutions. You've got solutions to problems. People have needs. The world has needs. Kids have needs. Families have needs. The poor have needs. The people around the world have a lot of different needs. What you have as an organization is solutions. And the first breakthrough is to realize that what you've got is the solution to somebody's problem. And you are inviting people into participate with that solution. Where breakthroughs come from is to realize that great breakthroughs in fundraising are preceded by breakthroughs in solving those problems and effectively meeting those needs. Donors are interested in the solution that your organization provides and how that solution can deliver can meet a need that is, and to do so in a way that is highly effective. So what you want to do in your first breakthrough is change your thinking, if you need to, change your thinking about where the problem lies and what your solution is, and get that very clear in your mind. The second breakthrough in fundraising is that breakthroughs in fundraising are inspired by achievements, not activity. Achievements, not activity. What specific, tangible results can you point to that justifies the future investment of your donors this week, this month, this year? I work with a number of organizations that measure their activity. For example, rescue mission. They serve a number of meals. They have bed nights that they keep track of. How many people are involved in their ministry that way? But those are just activities. What are the real achievements in that? How many people are off drugs? How many people are living a productive life? What's the real achievement that's going on? For your organizations in evangelism, so you had so many people show up. You had great attendance. That's wonderful. But where's the real achievement that's been involved as a result of your event? Thirdly, breakthroughs in fundraising are the result of transformation, not transactions. How many hands get raised is a transaction, but where is the transformation that takes place in the human heart, and how do we know that that's happened? Let me give you a definition of transformation. Transformation is the life of an individual, family, or community that moves towards what's good, positive, and constructive, and away from what's bad, negative, and destructive, combined with indicators of permanent and sustainable change. So my question to you is, what is really left from your activities after a week or a month or a year or even a decade? What's left from it? Now, over time, I'm sure many of your organizations are going to be able to point to lasting results. But I believe that this is why Jesus said to go make disciples, because that's the only thing that's really going to last. Over the last 30 years, I've seen a shift. Years ago, it was enough to just go out to our donors and say, hey, we're doing good work, so please help us. We could go out there and say, hey, we're doing a good thing, we need your help, and people would actually come alongside you and help you. They would come along and they would be a part of what you're doing, be a part of your ministry, and they would love you and work with you, and they would give. Not so much anymore. This story of we're doing a good work, please help, is really about you. What we're seeing now is the new model. The new model is that donors are more interested in what their mission is and how their pursuit of purpose, significance, and meaning in life can be fulfilled through their philanthropy. Donors are interested in knowing if God's given them a lot of money to give, or not a lot of money, it doesn't matter. The question is, how do I steward that money as a steward of what God's given me? What is the purpose for which God has given this to me? And so the idea that you have a vision is great, and people will follow that vision. But the real question is, what is the donor's purpose? What is the donor's vision? What does the donor want to accomplish? Then the question is, how can you be a vehicle through which they can accomplish what God's given them to do? Organizations need to demonstrate how the donor's dream can be fulfilled through partnership that will inspire extraordinary generosity. In other words, what we need to do is begin to create a superior value proposition for the donor that addresses their need for significance. Now, what I want to give you right now is actually from another mentor of John Ogle and myself, a guy named Bill McConkie. And he says there's 4 pillars to a major gift. Let me have you write these down. The 4 pillars of a major gift. 1, get into the donor's life. Number 2, discover their dream. Number 3, help the donor see how your organization is a vehicle for accomplishing their dream. And number 4, ask for a gift in the context of a favorable relationship. Let me just touch on each one of those. Get into the donor's life. Establish the personal relationship with them. Get to know who they are. Find out why they feel they can be in alignment with your organization. Find out what they're about. Get into their life and discover about their family, their goals, their dreams, their vision. When I work with major donors, I always like to ask them, at the end of the day, what do you want written on your tombstone? You know, when it's all been said and done, what do you want said about you, and what do you want to feel like you have accomplished? When you stand before Jesus Christ in the final hour, what is it that you want to be able to say you did as a steward of the money that He's given to you? And that's a very engaging question. It's a thoughtful question. Discover what they really want to accomplish. People do have dreams, and we want to discover what it is that they want to do and that they feel called to do, what their passions are. Thirdly, then you are at a point where you can say to them, here is how our organization could be the way in which you fulfill what God's given you to do. Okay, so let's get going with the breakthrough goals in fundraising. There's 5 of them. Number 1, to create clear and positive brand visibility in your desired target market. Number 2, to build your donor base with the right kind of donors. Number 3, to build your professional development team. Fourth, to create profitable income programs. And fifth, to create systems for marketing intelligence. I'm going to go through each one of these. And so let's start with the first one. I call it brand raising. And by the way, there's a great book out by Sarah Durham's called Brand Raising. And I'm using some of her material here because it's really it's a very good book, and I'd highly recommend it to you. Sarah Durham, Brand Raising. The goal is to create clear and positive brand visibility in your desired target market. Now, you do not have to be known by everybody. You don't have to be a national name. You have to own a certain geographic or segment of the market that will support you. That is where you want to get your brand. And when I say brand visibility, I'm talking about the name of your organization, what you stand for, those kinds of things. The brand experience goes from, and some of your organizations are really small, so you're down here at non-recognition. You're down here at this lower level. They don't know you at all. And the first goal is to get some recognition. Get recognized among a group of people that know who you are, recognize your name, and become familiar. They know something about you. And then, at some point in time, to invite them to try giving. Try a gift. Give a gift. And get to that point where you get a first gift. At some point in time, then they will advance to where they will prefer to give to you as opposed to other organizations or other causes. And then you can move up to the next level where there's insistence. They must choose to give to you. And finally, loyalty. They don't consider others. Organizations and products and services go through these phases with consumers or donors. And so when we talk about branding, there is this sense in which, over the years, I know here at the Plow organization, there have been many, many donors that over the years have tried us, and for whatever reason, they give one gift and they move away. On the other hand, there have been many, many hundreds and even thousands of loyal donors year after year after year, where the Plow organization is right up here. And as I look at I see a number of organizations of long-standing on the list of attendees today, and I know that there are some that absolutely would not even consider going through a tax year without giving a significant gift to one of your organizations. That's where you want your donors to go. But in order to get there, you've got to start at the bottom. And there are still many people for whom the Plow organization is an unknown. And so we're always in this process of developing the brand and building your brand. Now, what does the brand look like? In Sarah Durham's book, there's 3 levels: the organizational level, the identity level, and the experiential level. Let me explain these. At the organizational level, your brand is about your mission, your vision, your values. These are the core elements that define who you are. I work with a lot of organizations to help them really zero in on what their mission is and to bring clarity to their mission and vision. And by the way, mission is about why you're here. It's about your purpose. Vision is about where you're going. It's about your destination and what your future vision of what the organization could be like. Your values are about what's most important to you. What are the things that you really consider to be your core values? What's important? What are your priorities? That's the difference between mission, vision, and values. And then there's obviously some other things, your objectives and audiences. Positioning, and I'll talk about that in a minute, but personality is another significant brand differentiator. When you think of Luis Palau, you think of, he's Latin, he's from Argentina, has an accent, he's very enthusiastic, he's upbeat, high energy, and maintaining that level of energy even into, I don't know how old he is now, but let's just call it 70s, and, going strong. And you think about other evangelists maybe a little differently than that. They have a different personality. And so those are all part of your sort of organization. at the identity level, I'll give you a few examples in a minute about visual identity. That's your brand. That's your logo. That's your color scheme. It's your typeface, the font you're using, and your messaging platform. And then there's the experiential level, where people come in and experience what you have to offer. For example, at a Palau festival, that's an experience. It's a total brand experience. People walk into this festival scene, wherever that might be, a park, a field, a beach, whatever, a city block, and there's an experience going on in the event. What about you? What do people experience about your organization that makes it distinct or different or exciting? And they experience you at many different places, online, in print, on air, in person, on their cell phone, whatever. These are areas of branding, and so branding is really about a total package. The key to your future success is to occupy a strategic and unique position that differentiates you in the marketplace from other charitable choices. Let me give you a few examples, and I just can pull up a few websites here to kind of look at the branding elements here. But notice here with Luis Palau, you got a certain Luis Palau Association, a little globe thing here. And you look at the website, it's got the big crowd, and the word that at least stands out to me is the word fun. Fun stands out, and it looks fun. I mean, there's a sort of personality to this organization that says, this is pretty cool. What's going on here? You got a big concert event, you got a big stage, huge crowd, banners flying in the air, the sun is out, and everybody's having a good time. And that's a picture that just kind of captures, at least to me in my experience, what the Luis Palau experience is all about. Let me give you another one. Okay, famous organization. You're all familiar with Billy Graham. Once again, you have this typeface, and Billy with the little trailing Y there. Billy Graham, Evangelistic Association. And then their byline, always good news. Right there. It tells you what they're about. The website, just the way it's put together, looks a little more classic, a little more maybe institutional. And I don't want to make judgment calls on this. You can come to your own, but you get a different feeling from it. That's what I'm talking about with branding. Now, let me give you yet one more, and I think representatives from all these organizations may be on this webinar. But here's Mike Silva, a great guy. I love Mike Silva. And this gives you a completely different feeling, doesn't it? I mean, you got Mike Silva, and the word is international. And then he's got the globe here, and then it's against this sort of parchment, brown paper, kind of old map-ish looking background, and a name I'm not sure I can pronounce correctly, and a little bit more of a, thank you, Jim, and and Panama, and you know, it definitely looks international. You got a completely different kind of feeling about this as well. So that's what I'm talking about with branding. It is who is you, who is your organization, what do you look like, how do you come across? That's brand identity. I'll give you a couple more. Here's one, Reinhard Bonnke, famous evangelist, primarily focused on Africa, but you got a completely different kind of look here with the logo. You got him standing there, you got a globe, just kind of a little different feeling. Let me give you another example of branding. And this is actually one of my favorites. World Vision, I think, has just done an amazing job with branding, with their brand identity, and particularly their slogan. Their slogan is building a better world for children. And it's here twice. It's right there with their logo. It's right here. You got the sponsor a child opportunity here. You've got sponsor a child right here. And then you've got a very clear example of a story, poverty, cold weather, a brutal combination, and the flow of the story, and a place to begin to look at that. That gives you the sense that, wow, okay, you can sponsor a child, and you really know what World Vision's about. Obviously, the orange is their distinctive color. The cross up here in this triangular shape with World Vision, very distinctive, very memorable. Those are the kinds of things that go into building your brand. Now, let me give you another one. This is a client of mine. It's called Forward Edge. And you can sponsor a child. You'll see it right there. But it gives you a completely different feeling. This is about ordinary people, extraordinary purpose. This is an organization that sends mission teams out, and mission teams going to places of great need around the world. And so it's just a really different kind of feeling. What I'm suggesting to you is that as you're building your brand, to carve out what is your personality, what is your position in the marketplace, what are some of the words that describe you, and to really figure out what that is, and then graphically and visually bring that to life.
Ron, one of the questions we're getting hammered with here, people can't write fast enough, and are wondering if we'll have notes and an outline available later, and the answer is yes. So for those of you who are scrambling, trying to write all this down, we will have the outline available for you after the webinar.
I'll post the PowerPoint somewhere. We'll figure out where to do that. Introduction questions about branding. Let me just say, properly positioning your cause concept or giving opportunities requires clear communication and vision. I've been working with so many organizations that really trying to say who they are. What are we? What do we do? Why do we do it? What business are we really in, and why is that important? And it's vital that you figure that out. Another question that you might want to think about is, what business does our donor think we're in? I mean, so you do festivals? Great, but why? And they think you're in the festival business. You're not in the festival business. No one here at the Plow team would say we're in the festival business. We're in the evangelism business. We're about building the church. We're about serving the church. So what does our donor think we're in? And who is our right kind of donor? Who's going to support you, and frankly, who isn't? And again, I've worked with many clients over the years that are concerned about the people who get a little off kilter or offended, or they just don't quite resonate, and they're concerned about, how do I engage that person? Well, you know what? Maybe that's just not the right kind of donor for you. Stop wasting your time. Go find the ones that really do resonate with who you are. Spend your time there. Another question that comes up is, what hope do we offer them as a result of their gift? Let's face it, donors buy hope. And in a sense, and maybe if I say it a little crassly, we're selling hope. And I don't believe it's a false hope, but that's what they're looking for, the hope that this is going to be a better world for all of us because they've invested in what our organization does. And so we need to think about that. And then finally, what's our offer? I have an organization that for $120, they can provide a very valuable service to a very needy group of people. It costs $120. And it's an amazing offer. The value that $120 can bring to the people who need it the most. It's amazing what they do for $120. That's what I'm talking about, is what is your offer? Now, let me give you 8 brand attributes, and you're going to be writing this fast, so no need to worry about it. But listen, back in 2008, I had a meeting with the trustee of a major Christian foundation, and I said, look, what do you see after the crash? How do you think this is really going to affect the charities that you support? And what is going to be, with your portfolio now shrunk, whatever it was, 20 or 30%, you're going to have to make some very critical giving decisions. You're not going to be able to make the same amount of gifts or the same number of gifts that you have in the past. How are you going to differentiate between the winners and the losers in foundation grant making? He said the number one thing I'm looking for is essentiality. Is this organization essential to meeting needs? And so my question to you in defining your brand is, why are you essential? Why would people think of your organization as being an essential organization? Now, if you're feeding hungry children, you can make that case pretty well. If you're housing the homeless, you can make that case pretty well. If you're an evangelism organization, how do you make the case when it's not really based on physical need, but it's based on spiritual need? You've got to talk about why your organization is essential. Secondly, are you effective? Do you do what you do really, really well? And are you getting better at it? And are there demonstrable results? Can you prove what you've been doing is actually making a difference? I worked with an organization over the last couple of years that actually several years ago went through what I call a deep dive internally. They went on a deep dive to determine whether or not they really were fulfilling their mission. They had a mission statement. It was a well-written mission statement. And you know what they decided? That they were doing a lot of great activity, but no, they were not fulfilling their mission. They had results, but it wasn't what they said their mission was. They weren't getting there. And they had to do a deep dive introspection and come up with, are we going to change our mission to fit the current reality, or are we going to change the current reality to fit our mission? And fortunately what they did is they said, we're going to change our current reality to fit our mission statement so that we can accomplish this mission. They reorganized. They reconstructed their entire organization and rebuilt the whole thing from the ground up. And now they go at it from a completely different purpose. And they now have demonstrable results. Engagement. Another brand attribute is engagement. Do your givers participate? How do your givers get involved personally in their time and their talent? And I'm going to have to really rock and roll here because, my goodness, time's gone by. Relatability. Are you someone that they feel they can relate to or can relate to them? The personality of organization, are you comfortable? Can they feel comfortable around you? Appreciation, that goes without saying. You demonstrate genuine appreciation for their giving. Benefits, you remind them of what the benefits of giving to your organization are on a regular basis. And then simplicity, your appeal is simple to understand. These are just a few brand attributes. Let me go through this really quickly. Here's a couple of ways to think about positioning your organization. There's organizational effectiveness on one scale. You got that going up and down here. And then causal attractiveness on the other. And I'm going to just say causal attractiveness is sort of in the eye of the beholder. But face it, there are some causes that right now are quite attractive to givers. Human trafficking is a huge issue. Okay? In some circles, helping our military that are coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan and helping their families is pretty attractive. You know, I mean, whether it's helping the homeless, feeding starving kids across, you know, the world, whatever it may be, what makes that attractive? And there are some things that are high and some things that are low. Now, let me give you an organization. Organization A here. They are an organization that I talked to a number of times years ago, actually. They're a support organization. They really don't do anything direct, but they do support organizations that do something direct. And as a support organization, I asked two of their board members, I said, well, how effective are you? I mean, you're not real attractive as a cause concept. People are going to have to get you. You know, they have to get the strategic nature of what you do and appreciate what you're trying to accomplish. And that takes a more refined sort of giver, a giver that can really, you know, wants to do something strategic as opposed to, you know, just really tangible. And they said to me, well, we're really not that effective either. So they end up they end up down here in this bottom quadrant where they don't have a really good cause and they're not very effective at what they're doing. Okay, so my challenge to you on this webinar call is, let's be honest. how effective are you at what you do, and do you have an attractive cause? If you are down here in this quadrant down here, you've got to, there's only one way to get out of it and move your donor process, get your donor process moving and win more donors, and that is, first of all, you've got to get up here. You've got to get up to organizational effectiveness, okay? You've got to get yourself into this quadrant. Either that, or you might change your mission and come over here to causal attractiveness and start working it, but that's organization A. Now, organization B is already up here. They're very highly effective. They do great work. They just don't have a cause concept that is real exciting. I mean, it's not a real strong cause concept. And there are some organizations like this. I would say there are some great church planting organizations. But church planting, frankly, is not a really great high-level cause concept. It's not real intense. People don't sense a real urgency around church planting, even though there's some great organizations out there doing that. There are different kinds of family ministries or youth ministries that might be in this. They're just not quite there. So to go there, you got to position your brand and take it over here. Find something that has a stronger cause. Now, the next organization, organization C, does have a real attractive cause. You know, they're helping troubled youth. They're feeding hungry kids, that kind of thing. But they're just not really effective. And so what they've got to do is they've got to get it up here. They've really got to improve their organization. So I present this to you just to say, how do donors perceive you? And they're going to use this scale subconsciously. Are you causally attractive, and are you effective? Do you have something I want to do, and are you good at it? So you need to be very honest about how you would rate. Let's move on. Breakthrough number 2, build your donor base. In order to build your donor base, you've got to find the right kind of givers, win givers beyond the first gift, keep donors over years of time, lift donors to higher levels of impact. Now, notice on number 4 that I did not say lift givers to higher levels of giving. I said lift givers to higher levels of impact. That's because higher levels of giving should result to the donor in their feeling that they are making a bigger impact on the world through your organization. Now, I got this model from also John Ogle and one of our mentors, Bill McConkey, and it's called the lifetime donor model. Let me explain it. I'm just going to roll this thing out here. But at the very start of your point of entry pipeline, you've got a lot of different ways in which donors may want to engage with you. You may have some public relations. Find my arrow again. Public relations. There might be events that you do, direct mail, the website, personal referrals, any number of things that might ultimately get people introduced to you and lead to a first gift, from which then you must get that second gift. On down the road, they become monthly pledge partners, perhaps, major donors, ultimately maybe making a planned gift, and maybe being a part of a capital campaign. True story. I have a client. Someone came in, gave him a first gift. It was a can of coffee. 10 years later, they got a bequest for over $200,000. True story. No gifts in between. Never seen that happen before. Okay, it was a rescue mission. Another story, and this is actually a story about somebody who started back here with the first gift back in the late 70s, and they gave the second gift and became a monthly pledge partner for 20 years. $35 a month for 20 years, and then in year 21 or thereabouts, don't hold me to the 20 years, they gave a gift of about $100,000. And year 22, they gave another gift about $100,000. And year 3, they gave another gift about $100,000. And so they became a major gift, and then they put 20% of their estate in, for that, allocated 20% of their estate to that organization. Let me ask you a question. Is that good? Was that good? Great. That was great, wasn't it? That's why it's called the lifetime donor model. you've got to be thinking about the fact that you might encounter somebody today who is a donor, a one-time donor maybe, but the reality is this person 20 years from now could be leaving your organization in their will. And what happened in between gift number one and gift and the plan and the major gifts? What happened? The guy got rich. That's what happened. He got wealthy. He had business. He had stock. He had whatever gave him wealth to actually create that opportunity for him to do it. So my point is simply this: look at the goose, not the egg. Okay, look at the goose, not the. This is your goose. They're growing. They're developing. They're expanding over time. And your job in donor development is to keep them engaged and give them purpose in life and match their purpose with what you can offer them to do. And that's what we call down here donor value satisfaction. Remember, the goal of donor development: find the right kind of donor, give them value for their partnership, and keep them for life. That's the goal. Now, here's an illustration of what happens in most donor bases, and this says frequency given 2009. It could be any year, it could be any organization, because I see this pattern virtually everywhere that I run this report on. And you have a lot of people giving one gift, and this is the number of gifts that they gave, one gift, and then there's that many that give 2 gifts, and then 3 gifts, and so on, and then you have a dip, and then you have a little lift down here where gifts, 12 or 13 plus gifts in a year, a few monthly pledge donors down here. This is a very typical pattern. But you're going to find your sustainable support right there. And you're going to find that the people who continue here will tend to migrate down here eventually if you ask. Now, you've seen the donor pyramid. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that. But one of the things that I find is that mid-range and major donors actually tend to get neglected. There tends to be a real focus on direct marketing in many organizations, trying to get a lot of these mass donors. And David, how much money have we spent on trying to find mass donors here for the Plow team? And you know what? I don't think you have a lot more donors now than you did. Actually, it's been 17 years since I came to work for the Plow team than you did 17 years ago in the mid-90s. I mean, it really just hasn't worked. The real growth has been up here with these kind of donors. These are the people that have fueled the Plow team's growth over the years and really sustained the organization. So you've got to really focus on them. Why? Because 80% of your money is coming from people who give here. 80%. And then the other 20% is coming from down here. Now, here's an example of an organization. Look at this. Less than, well, here it is, 2% of their donor base gives 49% of the money. Half of their money, half of their organization's money comes from just 2% of their donor base. That is not uncommon. This is a pattern I see virtually with all of my clients. And so you're going to want to focus on those people that are giving $500, $1,000, $2,500, and on up. Now, there's 5 donors that you need to know how to find, and I'm going to really race. This is almost over.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. Can we go over?
Yeah. Sure.
As long as people are hanging out,
Yeah, keep going.
sustaining partners, project funders, major donors, and transformational mega givers. Now, I want to just touch on transformational. What I mean here is this is the donor that really can transform your organization by an infusion of capital. Okay? Now, I don't know what that is for you. If you're a small organization and you've got an annual income of less than $200,000, it's probably a gift of $50,000 or $100,000 that can really accelerate you forward. I remember years ago, in I think 2 years in a row, David, we got 2 gifts. Both were over $1 million 2 years in a row. And you know what happened here at the Plow team? It just accelerated everything that we did. It was an infusion of capital that just took us off from being kind of in this sustaining mode to having the capacity to really move forward. Those kinds of gifts are huge, and obviously you're looking for planned gift donors as well. So define your levels, plan for prospecting and acquisition, get your gift offers in place, have a mid-range strategy, and put together a major gift track. Now, where do you find them? Well, here's where you find them. You find them amongst your affinity. I was with somebody yesterday. We were talking about their natural affinity. Where do they go to church? Where do their kids go to school? Where have they worked in the past? Who knows them? What's their sphere of influence? How about their board? That's affinity. That's where people know you, love you, trust you, and are willing to support you. It's not out there in Iowa where you've never been before. It's right here in your own hometown. Then you're looking for people with capacity and the propensity to give, the likelihood of giving. Are they generous? Are they philanthropists? Do they understand giving? Are they stewards? Those are the kinds of questions you might ask. And then I want to give you this. It's the successful ask. Okay, the successful ask is about the right person asking the right prospect for the right amount, in the right way, at the right time, for the right cause, with the right follow-up. All right? If you can do that, you can be successful at fundraising. I'm going to keep moving. The third breakthrough goal, build your development team. I'm going to race through this. Understand this. You are the fundraiser. You are the one that's got to go raise the money. You cannot delegate this. People give to people justified by the cause. Secondly, everyone in a nonprofit organization is on the development team. Everyone represents the organization in some affinity group and is likely to create either positive brand identity or negative. Everyone needs to see themselves as a part of your team. Third, long-term organizational growth is directly linked to long-term major donor relationships. You cannot have long-term major donor relationships collapse on you. It will set you back. Donor drift occurs most rapidly with a change in development personnel. Okay? Donor drift is when people slide back down on that branding scale, and instead of insisting on giving you a gift, they're willing to consider others now. Why? Because the people that they connect with or turnover in the development team signals to them instability in the organization. Guard against it. Some characteristics of a weak team would be activity with no accountability, busyness with no results, political rather than relationship-driven decision-making, overblown expectations of development performance, criticism, gossip, and distrust, and no goals. Guard against these things. Oh, and transient people. I'm going to skip through some of these slides, and I'm sorry, because I want to get to breakthrough number 4 in the next couple of minutes. Second, okay, so number 4. The fourth breakthrough goal is to create profitable income programs. The goal here is to raise net income through profitable income programs. You may have direct mail, newsletter, events, social media, major donors, foundation grants. Those would be examples of income programs. We're talking about income streams. This is how you raise the money. You've got to create these programs, and in order to do so, you've got to design the program. There are many organizations on this call today that are just getting started, so this will be particularly valuable for you. Design the income program. So if it's direct mail, you design what you're going to do. Secondly, plan a test and an eventual rollout. Third, you've got to create the program elements. You've got to write the letter. You've got to write the response card and the carrier envelope and those kinds of things. Launch the program, integrate the program with other fundraising efforts, delegate it to a manager, accelerate the income. Okay, so those would be, I'll go back to that. Those would be some points for you in thinking through anything that you might do, whether it's direct mail, an event, an online campaign, you know, any kind of major donor effort that you might have. This is a list that can help you think through how to approach making that happen. I'm going to skip through this because I want to get to the next one, and we're almost out of time. Breakthrough number 5 is basically to create marketing intelligence through internal support systems. You cannot manage what you don't measure. You've got to have metrics for how you're performing. Bill McConkie says you can't break records unless you keep them. Sir George Pickering said, not everything that can count or that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. So what is marketing intelligence? It's basically just getting the right information so you know what to do next. That's what marketing intelligence is. You've got to have some information that tells you what to do next. A marketing intelligence system is a database that provides a process to collect and store useful information about givers and gifts. It's an easy way to manage communication, and it provides useful reports that can aid decision making. That's what we're talking about here. Without this, you really don't know what you're doing. So my encouragement to you, your 5th breakthrough goal, is to get your database in order. Start with a relational database that can combine all of the different things that you might want to do strategically to raise money. And then finally, make sure you've got the right process. I'm going to explain this slide very briefly. But what you're going to want to know is, first of all, donor information. Their name, their address, their phone numbers, their preferences for how they want to be communicated with, their interests, their job, family, relationships. Where did you get their name? That's very important. And then you have the ask. When you ask people for money, how do they respond? What's their motivation? What method and mode of giving did they use? And what kind of appeal motivated their gift? That's going to tell you something about what they're responsive to. And that's important to get the next gift and the next one. And then the third thing you want to take a look at is gift information. What's the gift information? You know, when did the gift come in? What's the amount? What's the designation? This is pretty basic for a lot of organizations, but I run into even well-established organizations that don't have quite this thing down yet. I mean, they've been doing this for years, and they don't have the database, and they're doing the database wrong. The result is that you cannot then reliably pull names out of your database, send a mail or email to them, because the data somehow is corrupted, and what that does is it prevents you from effective communication and fundraising. So that's why this is really, really important. Let me close with this. This is my last slide. Amy's sitting there going, good, last slide. All right, we're almost there. Here are some breakthrough goals and ideas. First of all, become a dream giver. Give your donors a dream that they can partner with you to fulfill. Amen. Secondly, own the one word or idea that describes your organization. Luis Palau, festivals. Right?
Innovative evangelism.
Innovative evangelism. Okay, innovative evangelism. That's what you want to be known for. Okay, next, find the right kind of donor. Look, don't worry about everybody else. Find the people that love what you do, resonate with what you do, and will be with you for a long time. Help donors link their purpose to yours. Help donors see that their purpose in life and your purpose as an organization are integrally linked, that they are connected. Put first things first. Okay? When you get into donor development, it's really important that you get the fundamentals down. It's easy to go mimic somebody else's tactic and say, well, so-and-so did this or that. We should go do this or that too. No, that's not very strategic. Lay your foundation down and put first things first. Measure everything. Keep track of what's working for you and what's not. And finally, I leave you with this. Experience joy. Been in fundraising now 30 years. It's not always been easy. But there is a joy that comes from seeing God's work done and givers blessed as a result of their giving. I hope that this has been a worthy use of your time. And again, Many apologies for our technical glitch. I have absolutely no idea how that happened, but here it is. Thank you very much.
Ron, thanks. That was awesome. Thank you. And we'll post these slides for everyone. I know some of you were trying to frantically write down all the notes. We'll have them available to you, and we'll let you know how you can access those. We do have I know some of you may have to go, but we've got a few questions here, some interesting questions. So, Ron, the first question is, what are the key strategic differences in cultivating that small $25 a month donor versus going after a $25,000 gift?
Well, first of all, it's the offer. What can somebody do for $25,000 that otherwise wouldn't happen without a consequential gift? What is it that you're offering that person to do, and what can they accomplish with that kind of money versus $25 a month? That's a completely different offer. Yeah, so if it's sponsoring a child or something like that, so that's one. Secondly, I really advocate. I mentioned one of the types of donors you need is project funders, and sometimes major givers like to take on a project. So a $25,000 donor, if you can give them a project that otherwise, without their gift, is going to either be a long run in fundraising for you to get there, or it just isn't going to happen, they can have the satisfaction of knowing that that project is something that they did. They own it. And that's a real satisfying thing for them.
Here's an interesting question concerning your breakthrough number 5, Ron, on internal support systems. In regards to internal support systems, marketing intelligence systems, do you recommend purchasing an existing sort of off-the-shelf management system or creating your own unique system through Excel or some other available software?
Well, you've got to create something and maintain it if you do it yourself. There are some unique differences to organizations, and sometimes there are nuances to an organization's database needs that require them to have a custom system. But by and large, I recommend for small organizations getting started at least that you go with an off-the-shelf, online, web-based database system that's built for donor development that gives you the kind of flexibility that you need, and you can pay a small monthly fee. Because that's the best way for you to manage, have access to data, be able to have multiple users, and also to have the annual updates that are going on all the time. I should say annual. I mean, they're daily and weekly updates, so the technical support is all there. You're going to pay a small monthly fee for that. It might be $50, $100 a month, whatever it is. But compare that to having the salary of someone who's an IT specialist. And then the other thing on that is don't get too complicated. There are some great Cadillac systems out there, but they're oftentimes way too much for a smaller organization to handle. So find something that is right-sized for you.
This is an interesting question. You mentioned how church planting is not a real attractive cause. In fact, probably a lot of people on the line have the challenge of not having attractive causes, but they're meeting need, and they're meeting spiritual needs and winning people to Christ, which is just a tough sell, which is interesting. You mentioned it's much easier to sell someone on meeting a physical or human need than a spiritual need. But this participant in the webinar is with a church planting organization, and maybe that cause is not real attractive. So how they're reaching unreached people groups. So how can they be more attractive and present a stronger cause when their mission is church planting?
Well, you got to make the case for church planting, and make the case that is a biblical mandate, and that this is something that God's called us to do, and that a believer who is interested in fulfilling the Great Commission, this is a great way to do it, and it's the only sustainable way to do it. I mean, you're not going to have, you're not going to reach the world for Christ unless there's churches planted in areas where they have not yet been planted. And so you've got to make the case for it. Make the case, generally speaking, for what you do, and also make the case for why your organization is a good investment. And so that's what I would say about that. You've got to help educate the donors to the essentiality of that cause.
On your comments about building a team, this participant asked, how do I train my inexperienced team when I have a small budget or no budget? How do I develop my team on a limited budget?
Develop the team on a limited budget. I'll go back to a couple of slides I went through. First of all, start with your leadership team. And this gives me a chance to kind of talk about this, but start with your leadership team. You've got yourself. I'm assuming you're a CEO or a VP or whatever. You've got you. Secondly, you've got your board. Yeah. Now, listen, in many Christian organizations, board members are seen, they don't see themselves as fundraisers. They see themselves as a time and talent board as opposed to a treasure board. But when you're early on, you've got to have board members that see themselves as recruiters and fundraisers and willing to do that themselves. So leverage board members and key volunteers. You may want to create a special fundraising group that is really about getting you to where you need to go. So on a limited budget, find key volunteers, find board members, and give them clear direction about what you expect them to do to win people one-on-one through personal referral, small group meetings, and those kinds of things.
Here's an interesting question. For those of us on the call today who have very small ministries and limited development budgets, what are your thoughts on commission-based fundraising, bringing on a professional on a contract and paying them based on a commission?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I've confronted this numerous times. In the fundraising profession, that type of fundraising arrangement for consultants is typically frowned upon ethically. And so here's what I would recommend you do. Go to the ECFA website, take a look at what the Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability has to say. Even if you're not a member of the ECFA, these are good guidelines. You can also go and take a look at what the Association of Fundraising Professionals has to say about consultants that do this and their ethical guidelines. Get a good download on what that is. Now, I understand when you're small that you've got to have some way to get off the ground. One of the things that you might do is create a nucleus fund that is really designed to pay for your fundraising expenses. Find some donors that would say, we're going to help you launch this organization. Here's some money. Go invest it in building your donor base so that you can grow. So that's one option. Another option when it comes to hiring someone is, to do it on the basis that you're gonna get a flat fee, and that flat fee is going to be whatever that is, and you're expecting a certain result for that flat fee. Okay, so you're not paying a commission, but you're giving them basically a fee to go perform a certain task, and that kind of gets you around some of that.
Again, a lot of the participants have small development teams. One of our participants has a question, Ron. Where can they go to both learn how to do grant writing and find help in the area of grant writing?
Without sounding too self-promotional, you can do that with me, obviously, but to answer your question, the Foundation Grant Center, go to the the website just slipped my mind, but you just Google the Foundation Grant Center in New York City and go to their website. There's some terrific resources there. You can Google also, there's a group called Foundation Search, and I actually subscribe to that service. You do have to be a member of that service, but that particular service has some tremendous educational resources. Some of those, I believe, are free on their website. And then, I mean, you can get a lot of good information, you know, on various websites if you Google it and you find, you know, how to do grants. Writing a grant is not necessarily all that difficult. There's some technique, but you can do it. You probably want to, if you write it, get some professional feedback on it. It's researching the foundations and getting into relationship with the foundation decision makers that's the greater challenge. And I will tell you this, there are foundation trustees I've talked to over the years, and they've said that the number of good proposals that they get is pretty small. And they would like to see better proposals. So my encouragement to you is this. If you write a proposal, make sure you answer the questions. You go through and you do what their application calls for and answer their questions as best you possibly can.
Here's an interesting question, Ron. This is a ministry that's been around for almost 50 years. They have a great donor base, but they've basically been doing the same sort of fundraising strategies for many, many years, same events every year. So what suggestions would you have for fresh and new ways of communicating with those donors to keep them excited again about their cause and keep the vision fresh in the donors' minds?
Yeah, good question. Stale fundraising is what we're talking about. Well, my first question is it working? Are these income programs growing, or are they in decline? I mean, the fact that you do your annual banquet every year, well, I mean, what is the income? Is it growing? So I would first want to leverage what you're currently doing and give it maybe some, spice it up, freshen it up, give it some new pizzazz, you know, lift what you're doing. Secondly, then there's the question of what is it that you want to accomplish in terms of your fundraising goal? And is there a new methodology that you might want to use to try to raise funds for something special that you've never done before? Maybe there's some special project that you've got that that would be a great, you could use a different fundraising methodology to raise money for it, like another type of event or something, and just get real narrowly focused. There might be an online campaign. Okay?
This evangelist, Ron, wants to know how they can increase their ministry's funding through email when a lot of their recipients and prospects just don't want to be bothered through email. They say they even had someone threatened with a lawsuit for emailing them. So what have you seen as effective ways of using email in fundraising?
Email. Well, you know, from all I see and read, email has not been that effective as a fundraising tool. I think we all had great high hopes for email, you know, and we all would like to see email do better. But email has not been a great activator of gifts, you know, in any charity. So, you know, I would use email to stay in touch, give them news, but I wouldn't hammer hard on donations with email because there's touch points, many touch points, but when you get to the point where you have an urgent need, a very specific project, a well-timed and deliberate goal, and opportunity to do something, okay? That is when you pull out the stops on email. Let me give you an example. I have a client, they're an international client. They work in a country that does not have the same kind of justice system that we do, okay? Now, one of their people was very unjustly accused of something and entered into a legal problem. And so this gave rise to the ability for them to tell their story. There's an urgent need. It's an urgent prayer request. they had a situation that deserves an email blast. Okay? We blasted on this, and it's a relatively small amount of money that's needed, $3,000, to kind of get some initial legal stuff going. But the prayer was phenomenal, and the charges were dropped. Okay, so now we get to go back and say, in this situation, prayer works. We didn't raise a lot of money, but my point is that you got to look for those kinds of opportunities to use email appropriately.
Well, you'll enjoy this, Ron. Several people are wondering what your fee structure is, to walk them through this. I think what we'll do at the end of the questions, we'll give you Ron's contact information. You can approach him if you want some custom-made, tailored help on your fundraising plans. But I'm sure he appreciates that. Hey, one last question here, Ron. Well, I got two here. Let's take two more.
Okay.
This question is: do you still, for years, desserts and homes, fundraising events, group fundraising events and homes, sponsored by maybe a donor, a board member, were popular. What do you see as are these still effective? What are the pros and cons of having a fundraising event hosted in a donor's home?
I still love the idea. I think that it, and I think in many situations it still can work and does. It engages the host. It engages the donors that are involved. It provides a very inexpensive platform, a very intimate platform in which people can interact and get to know you. It makes you accessible to people. It gives you a warm personal relationship. So to the extent that you can actually pull this off, I still really like the idea, because you can raise some good donors in this. And people give to people they know and like. So that's the value of these kinds of home meetings. And I think, hasn't the Plow team continued with some of this? I mean, we don't go into a city and do a festival, and ride on, just massive citywide events the whole way. I mean, a lot of that goes on with what the Plow team is doing now, I believe. Isn't that true?
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
This last question, Ron, the writer realizes there's probably 100 different answers, but in your opinion, how frequently, how often should the ministry communicate with a donor?
How often? Wow, that's a great question. Well, more and more donors have preferences as to, the frequency and the style and the mode in which they want to be communicated with. And you can communicate via text and email and slow mail and all those kinds of things. But typically, I haven't really changed from where I was at many years ago. 10 to 12 direct mail letters a year, stretching up into 14, is not out of the ballpark. And I'm seeing with my clients that you can do that and not depress response. Secondly, you got the newsletters and some other things. So you might be in the mail, easily 12 to 16 times a year. 16, I think, is a little much, but that's not out of the ballpark. I shoot for at least 10 to 12 in the mail every year, so one a month. And then in email, to maintain a presence in email is once or twice a month on up to, I have seen 2 and 3 and 4 times a day with email, depending on who it is, and I think that's way overloaded. But if you're in a very specific campaign, if you have a window of time in which you are focused on achieving a goal, to send out an email a day as your constituency is hearing about a project, a specific goal, an achievement that you're all working for, the need to raise money, an urgent situation, whatever it may be, that's not unreasonable. And most of you are not in disaster relief, but I would say, hey, if we had another Hurricane Sandy or Katrina or something like that, to be in the mail or on email very frequently, and even in the direct mail stream more frequent than that, I would do it. but typically I would keep your touches to, you know, 1 or 2 a month through different channels.
Ron, we were unable to get to everybody's question today, and several people have indicated how can they contact you when we go offline here. So maybe you can give your contact information, how people can contact you.
There it is. There it is.
So it's Ron Frey, President, Frey Resource Group. It's Ron at ronfrey.com. Ron at Ron Frey. Frey is F-R-E-Y. Ron at ronfrey.com. If you want to engage Ron in a conversation about some questions that might not have been answered, or if you'd be interested in Ron's help for your ministry, Ron at ronfrey.com. We want to thank all of you for your patience with us today and for joining this webinar. We hope to do at least 4 or 5 Palau Alliance Ministries webinars each year on topics of concern to you. We want to provide webinars that deal with practical concerns you're dealing with in your ministry. So please feel free to email any of us here at the Palau Association if you have topics that you would like dealt with in a quarterly webinar. Again, thank you everyone for joining today's webinar on breakthroughs in fundraising. For those of you on the line, just a reminder too, the Palau Alliance Ministries, we're going to be hosting a evangelism conference here in Portland, Oregon, August 19 to 21. And at that conference, we will have a number of workshops on development and fundraising. So please mark your calendars to be with us August 19 to 21 for our Connect conference here in Portland, Oregon. Blessings, everyone. Thank you for being with us today.